This meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded and stored for access after the meeting. The public can submit a public speaks using the BOE questions form on the website or by using the chat feature of the WebEx or by signing up for the audio live speaks, which is also on the website. Adequate written notice of this meeting of the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education was sent to the township and village clerks, the Star Ledger, the News Record, tapintoit, soma.net, villagegreennj.com, and it is also posted on the district website along with the annual calendar of meetings. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. I would like to move a motion that allows for distance participation in our monthly general board meeting. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, aye. Good. All right. Mr. Roth, I feel that's unanimous. As per our board agreement, Mr. Roth, please note that unfortunately board member R. Baker will not be able to attend as there's a family medical emergency. Mr. Roth, please take the roll.
Board member Elizabeth Baker.
Here.
Board member Robin Baker. Out. Board member Shannon Cuttle.
Here.
Student representative Lily Foreman.
Here.
There we go. Board member Thayer Joshua.
Here.
Board member Anne Marie Manny.
Here.
Board member Anthony Mazzocchi.
Here.
Board member Erin Siders.
Here.
Board member Johanna Wright.
Present.
Board member Kamal Zubieta. That's 8 voting members and 1 student representative present.
Thank you so much, Mr. Roth. Now, I would like to take a few moments to acknowledge that this is the last board meeting of 3 of our retiring board members. Board member Mazzocchi, board member E. Baker, as well as board member R. Baker. It has been my great pleasure and privilege to serve with and learn from each of you. Over the past several years, we have worked hard as a board to use our oversight and governance role, not to run the schools, but to get us on a path to ensure that the schools are well run. We have not always agreed on the path, but I know that we have all wanted excellence for our children, staff, and community. I would like to start with best wishes for board member Mazzocchi. Board member Joshua, can you share a few remarks?
Absolutely. And when I'm done, I want board member Mazzocchi to hold up that plaque because I haven't seen it yet. So, it's my honor to say a few words of thanks to board member Mazzocchi. Since you joined in January 2018, a lot has happened within our district. Part of your charge was to hire a new superintendent, which was done, as well as pass a landmark $160 million facilities and integration plan. District and community move forward in the months and years to come. Not just me, but I want to offer thanks to you for the other, for the 13 board members that you worked with during your 3 years on the board. I can speak for all of us when I say we appreciate it. Your thoughtful approach to our discussions, whether it be in public session, executive session, and mostly in committee. On a personal note, thank you for making my transition to the finance committee chair as smooth as it was. Again, I appreciated the opportunities we've had to chat about, our district, education at large, and just the world as COVID changed everything around us from March until today. And lastly, again, on behalf of all of the members of the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education, our thanks for your 3 years of service, and don't be a stranger. Thank you.
Show us the pack, Tony. Come on. Thank you. Tony, did you want to say something?
Well, that's nice. Yeah, thanks, Tahir. You're right. It's been a long 3 years. Well, first and foremost, I thank all the people, and there were many who listened to me a few years ago and chose to back that campaign. It seems way back when. They worked very hard and put, a lot of confidence in me. I will never forget that. And in turn, I did promise that I was going to take my responsibility on this BOE very, very seriously. And I feel as if I have. I've certainly shown up. I've done the work to the best of my ability. And, although I leave, like I always am, a little disappointed that all that remains undone, I'd like to believe that the place is a little better for having me here on behalf of the children. And, congrats to the new board members, Courtney, Alyssa, Susan, Kamal. I do believe that the iteration of the BOE over the past few years has left some foundation, and at least a blueprint for the next board members to follow. I definitely wish you all the best of luck, and thank you for your willingness to serve, and thanks to Melanie and Deborah for running with a lot of passion as well, and of course to all my BOE colleagues over the years and sitting here today. I'm sorry we couldn't do this in person, but thanks for all that you do, and thanks especially to the teachers of the district who have held up the fort as they always have, through all the twists and turns. And I won't take up too much time, but even though I ran on a platform of of creativity and innovation a few years ago, I knew full well that as many of you do, creativity and innovation, they often occur as an outgrowth of a mastery of the basics, right? The fundamentals that allow someone or an organization to flourish. And our district 3 years ago was in desperate need of those basics. I thought 3 years might be enough to address them. Silly me. There's still a ways to go, but this board did take care of beginning to address the major issues that have plagued our district for a while: infrastructure, the finances, curriculum, integration, admin churn, and we began to lay that foundation. But again, there's a ways to go. My biggest regret is that we didn't, in my opinion, talk about and act on teaching and learning nearly enough. We didn't talk about and act on student achievement nearly enough, nor talk about the multiple pathways that define student success enough. And this pandemic hit, and with all the strength we were beginning to build, and especially in budget and finances, updated policies, and our work, even albeit a little surface on curriculum, these weaknesses were amplified for all to see, and we do have many. But there lies an opportunity as well to do even better than before if we're really brave enough to lean into those weaknesses and not hide them and address them once and for all. I do hope the next board does that. So just please dig into the core of these issues. Don't work around the edges. We've all sat here and talked about some very important issues affecting our students, but I don't think we've practiced what we preach enough regarding being, data-driven, student-centered, whole child-oriented, right? And search deeply for what our teachers really need to succeed so their students can succeed, that kind of stuff. Because our children in real time right now have a lot of those same interests, passions, and dreams that I did when I was a student here back in, Tuscan school. And thank goodness I had that system around me that allowed me to shine. And I'm sorry I just wasn't able to do more as an individual to affect that during my time. But again, together, I hope we laid enough groundwork for this to happen sooner rather than later. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tony.
Oh, a strange sound of that one clap.
So board member Cuddle, we will hold board member R. Baker's acknowledgement. Maybe she can come in the January reorg meeting. unless anyone thinks differently.
No, I think she should
Okay.
be here. I think she should
Yeah, I think so too.
participate in person.
Great, thank you. And finally, I would like to acknowledge the fortitude and drive of Board Member E. Baker to use the tools available to the board, CUSAC, CEP, HIB monitoring, et cetera, to help move our district forward. Board Member Siders, would you like to make a few comments?
Hi. All right. So, Board Member Elizabeth Baker. Her tenure was January 2015 to December 2020. And some of the outstanding positions she filled. Currently, she's the Curriculum and Instruction Chair. Previously, she was the Chair of Personnel. And of course, she spent 3 years as our Board President. On behalf of the students and the community, I'm recognizing Elizabeth Baker for her service to the South Orange Maplewood School District. Thank you, Board Member Baker, for your 6 years on the Board of Education. We first met when you were on the campaign trail running for your first term on the board. You may not recall, but I remember listening to you speak, and it was clear that you had the passion, the vision, the drive to do all you could to push this district forward. In the second year of your first term, you became board president. Obviously, your colleagues recognized your leadership abilities to move the board forward. Your time on the board was during some of the toughest challenges that the district may have ever faced. Tough decisions had to be made to lay the groundwork for where we are today and how much better we can be. Your leadership brought forth the long-range facility and the intentional integration plan. You can honestly say that you are leaving the district in a better place than it was when you joined. Personally, I'm going to miss you in the horseshoe. As a board member, you are always prepared, always dedicated, always candid, and always ready to do the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you, Erin. And I'd like to thank all of you, my colleagues on the board, and most importantly, the South Orange Maplewood community for the opportunity to serve our community and our students for the past 6 years. And to my family, my husband, Joel, my daughters, Olivia and Eleanor, because this has truly been a family endeavor. And they're being all in on this work. No matter how difficult it was for our family or for them personally or inconvenient with all the calls, meetings, emails, you know, they have been incredibly supportive and dedicated and recognize the value of what we've been doing together on this board and in our school district. The work has been hard, it's, you know, to be sure, as Erin acknowledged, but it goes to the heart of our values as a community and what brought us, most of us here, which was the future and the world we wanted to leave our children. The work that we've done to ensure integration, to build our infrastructure, both our physical infrastructure, rebuild it, and our human capital, and to ensure that our children, each and every child, is receiving the highest quality education and welcome in our schools as possible, I think has moved our community forward, but there's still so much work to be done. For far too long, our community debated whether we could achieve equity or whether we were going to achieve excellence, as if it was a zero-sum game, as if those goals were mutually exclusive. And it was through the brutal realities that we began to face as a community in 2015, 16, 17, that as a community, we moved past that zero-sum paradigm. And I think, you know, turned a corner where no matter how hard it was, we recognized that we could not have excellent schools if they were not equitable, and that we had to consistently demand excellence for every child. So that paradigm shift is important. And now we're at the hard part, right, of actually doing it and sustaining it. And I think as I leave, I want to remind everyone, we cannot take any step forward for granted, right? If we don't remember it, if we don't safeguard it, if we don't learn from it, if we don't build from it, we will lose that progress. And we still have so much more to do. I'd like to thank the teachers, the parents, the administrators who've stepped up to lead this work, and the administrators and educators and other very talented individuals in our central office who joined our team and been willing to put themselves on the line to be the face of this work. It's hard, and it's not without personal risk. And I want to say that it's very, very bittersweet to be leaving with so much left to do. And as I think everyone knows, and I'll report out in my curriculum report tonight, I really feel that the curriculum and instruction program is gaining momentum, and that the work that Dr. Perez will be doing to actually help us drive our equity work, I think will provide not just the board, but the community with a framework for making sure that we're not just living up to our commitments, but learning from them and going beyond them. I also want to say that it's bittersweet to be leaving the board and the school district in this remote setting, to not be with you, but also to not have our students back in the buildings yet, even in a hybrid model. And I, as a parent, will be working with all of you and expecting that we're all doing as much as we can to ensure that every child can get as much exposure back in our building, to their teachers and their classmates in a safe way and a supportive way, and to ensure that when we consider school climate and the leadership of our educators to ensure positive school climate is critical work, whether we're remote, whether we're hybrid, or whether we're all together in the building at the same time. And I think we all need to remember how important it is, not just that we're working on structures and schedules and programs that are reaching our students and bringing them together, but that we're actually finding the time to think about every single child, to make sure that no child is falling through the cracks, and that we're actually doing our best, right? That we're not answering any question in a routine way or what's easiest for the adults, but literally what's best and what's fair for every child. And I know that's not easy, and we all have COVID fatigue, but I applaud the courage of our teachers, our administrators, our board, to keep having those conversations and bringing that lens. And I applaud the parents who've not only been seeing their children and working as partners with the school district through this incredibly difficult time, but who are willing to keep working with us as to how we can and must do better, whether we're remote, hybrid, or back in person. So I wish everybody a much healthier, safer, and hopefully less stressful 2020. I'll be joining you not in the horseshoe or in these as a panelist on these Zooms, but in this work and in hopefully new roles that I'll be able to take on in the community. And I thank you for your service and your courage to keep leading this work forward. And I look forward to the energy that the new board members will continue to bring. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Elizabeth. All right, so in January, we will add 3 new board members to our board, and I am confident that they will add to and expand upon the work of supporting our district to serve the needs of all of our children. And I look forward to that. Great, thank you so much. Now I would like to approve the board minutes. We have executive session and regular session from November 16th and special, Dr. Taylor, I'm sorry, did I miss something?
We need to do our roll call first, Madam President. From what I'm looking on the agenda here, have we had our roll call?
We did.
We already did the roll call.
Okay, great. So now it's time for our board recognition.
Okay, all right, I was doing minutes first, but okay, all right. Student Representative Foreman, would you like to do the recognition?
Sure, thank you. And I also, before I go into those, I just want to echo everything about our outgoing board members. I'm very happy to work with you. And on behalf of all the students, we really appreciate the work that you've done in the district, so thank you. Okay, for the recognitions, first, the board is recognizing all SOMSD students. To all of our SOMSD students, the board recognizes you for your courage, resilience, determination, spirit, and commitment during the pandemic, this challenging time. The administration, education, appreciation, support, remind all students that they are valued, they are not alone, and they are part of the SOMSD family. Next, we have two staff recognitions. First, we have Principal Renau, who was selected to serve on the entitled School Leadership in a Year Like None Other, Learning from New Leaders Alumni, as part of Excel in Ed Palooza Conference, a can't miss event for policymakers, policy shapers, and practitioners. November 3rd, 2020. Ed Palooza provides state leaders the opportunity to explore next-generation learning models, develop strategies to drive transformative change, and consider policies that modernize schools and empower families. Close to 100 virtual sessions featured the latest education policy trends, innovations, and state-driven solutions. Congratulations, Principal Renau. And finally, congratulations to the Board of Education members. On Wednesday, December 9th, at the Essex County School Board Association meeting, the South Orange Maplewood District Board was recognized by NJFA for achieving the Carol E. Larson Master Board Certification. The earning of this certification demonstrates the board's commitment to effective governance, training, values, and working together as a team. Certified board members, among other requirements, must complete 16 hours of team training over a 4-year period. Additionally, to earn the Master Board certification, members must complete an additional 10 hours of training together as a board within their first 2 years of earning board certification. During the presentation, it was noted that only 40 boards have achieved this designation out of 4,500 in New Jersey. The meeting also highlighted board members who have achieved individual certification, and board member Shannon Cuddle was acknowledged for achieving new board member or NBM certification. Congratulations, and that concludes tonight's report, or tonight's recognitions.
Thank you, Student Representative Foreman.
Ms. Manning, may I add something? In terms of recognition, I'd like to recognize outgoing board member Mazaki, who a couple of weeks ago was honored by being presented or on the Kelly Clarkson show, where he was brought on with his students from Montclair State University for the things that he was able to do to bring those students together from the beginning of the school year and have them inside COVID-free and performing. So it was a wonderful, wonderful thing to see and witness. And I would suggest that people go back and check that out. And congratulations, Tony. And it's been a wonderful 3 years with you, my former student. Congratulations.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Johanna.
So now we're going to approve the board minutes. We have executive session and regular session from November 16th and special regular and executive session November 30th. Are there any comments or changes to the minutes? All right, Mr. Roth, can you move them into the record, please? All right. So the school board meeting is a business meeting in public, not a meeting with the public. Oftentimes, it may appear to members of our audience that the Board of Education takes action with very little comment and in many cases, a unanimous vote. Before a matter is placed on the agenda at a board meeting, the administration has thoroughly reviewed the matter with the superintendent. If the superintendent is satisfied that the matter is ready to be presented to the Board of Education, it is then referred to the appropriate board committee. Members of the board committee work with administration and the superintendent to assure that the members fully understand the matter. After the committee discusses the matter, it is presented to the full board for discussion before any item is taken. Only then is it placed on the agenda for action at a public meeting. Dr. Taylor, we are ready for your superintendent update.
Thank you very much to our board president, and I will just join the congratulations of board member Mizaki and board member E. Baker and board member R. Baker, who's not able to be here. Thank you for your service. In my short tenure thus far, it's been a pleasure to learn from you, to gain context around the work that we're doing. And we've had long committee evenings, and the public doesn't get to see all that work that is done on behalf of our students, and it is truly appreciated. To our board president, I know that one thing that I miss about our in-person board meetings were our student performances. And so we are able, thanks to the genius that is Keith Bonds, we're able to share a student performance. And here's the introduction to this performance. This is a video that's going to be highlighting Columbia High School 11th grader, Isaac Addo, that he has a piano scholarship with his teacher, Elizabeth Burnett. And this video was shared with us through James Mano, our supervisor of the arts. And it's just, again, highlighting a continuing partnership with the Hart Center, Arts Office and staff. And we're very excited to share what has resulted from a distance, a virtual piano scholarship lessons that Isaac has. I'm sure he was already brilliant. Wait until you hear this, Mr. Bonds. I'm hearing that not everyone can hear this performance. To our board members, if you were able to hear, can you give me a thumbs up? All right, so it looks like Google and WebEx are fighting each other. So the easiest thing for us to do, we're going to put it on all of our channels post meeting, just so everyone will be able to see and hear it. But it was a truly marvelous presentation from Isaac, and he, with his scholarship achieved through the district. I do apologize that there's a little bit of technical glitch there.
I just want to say quickly, I listened to that.
I did too.
I listened to Isaac, and if you're watching Isaac, that was a beautiful Bach. It's a beautiful Chopin, and my colleagues and everybody should know that Chopin is not easy, and you played it with some serious heart, and you have some very bright things ahead of you. So I'm glad I'm coming off the board, because I can tell you in January, I'm sure that there's a school of music and a summer music school that is going to be excited to give you as much scholarship as you want to attend. And, I'll also say that you breathe some real beauty into my day. And I really hope that we can do more to cultivate your love and everybody else's potential love of what you're doing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that really stopped me in my tracks when I heard it. It's one of those things. When I see the memes that our students and my daughter share, one of those that says, "I'm not crying, you're crying," right? Like that's how powerful that performance was. So for those if there were some glitches and you couldn't see it, we'll push it out. We'll put it on all of our channels and our social media, etc. It was just out of this world work and by Isaac. And thank you, Board Member Mizaki, as a renowned musician yourself, for giving that feedback. I'm sure that it is very well received. So to our members of the public, we have a couple of very short but important updates for you. I hope that everyone received our video that was shared this Friday. We pushed out just helping everyone to know what to expect in our upcoming town hall webinar that will be released on the 17th, and also adding a live Q&A on December the 21st for those who would like to see further questions answered. We will have as real time as possible updates on all of our reopenings. And thank you to the more than 400 people who sent in individual questions that will help us to be guided in our conversation. We want our updates on the 17th and the 21st to be as relevant as possible. Secondly, to our members of our community, one of the final resolutions on this agenda is your NJQ-SAC self-assessment for our district. For those who may not be as familiar with NJQ-SAC, it's part of a continuum quality assurance that every district in the state of New Jersey goes through. It's a 3-year cycle, and this is our year for our 3-year cycle, and it begins with a detailed review of each component. And we have 5 component areas that we are reviewed for NJQ-SAC. And so we have a component leader that helps us to go through and review and make sure that we have evidence of our compliance with each of these component areas. And so the next step for our NJQ-SAC review is our county, which represents the state, comes in and looks at our self-assessment that we're going to submit to them tomorrow. And they'll let us know if they agree with our self-assessment and if they feel as though there are more artifacts that are needed to satisfy each of those areas. In discussing this approach with the board president, we thought it would be most relevant to bring our NJQ-SAC results and the results of our county evaluation to the board meeting right after that. That way we would have a full conversation. I want to just thank all of those members of our district NJQ-SAC team. Our board members approved that team at our last board meeting. And even outside of that team, there were so many individuals in our district, even in this virtual setting, who helped us to complete the self-assessment. I'd like to thank also our SLT and Dr. Friedman, who was my liaison for helping to lead this NJQSAC review. Again, it's just a snapshot of where we are, but it's a very important snapshot because it connects back to all of the things that we should be doing, all of the curriculum that we should have available. And you'll see on this agenda that we have quite a bit of curriculum that's up for a small revision to make it QSAC compliant. And it also speaks to some of the things, we speak about the growth mindset very often. And part of the growth mindset is your self-assessment, being able to look at yourself and see where we can improve. And so, again, we were very honest in this NJQSAC self-assessment. We were able to share these component areas with the committees that meet on behalf of the Board of Education. And we also were able to share with our district committee, as well as the full board, our final self-assessment. And we look forward to coming back to you with the feedback that we get from our county office. So just once again, don't forget, we're going to release our town hall webinar on December the 17th, and we'll have a follow-up Q&A on December the 21st. Wishing everyone a healthy and safe holiday season.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. I have a brief update as well. As we enter this winter break, I do hope that our families, children, and staff can take some time for self-care. I was pleased to see one of the PD sessions that was offered was on the need for self-care, as well as a session dedicated to the social and emotional supports of our children. As a community, we must all be vigilant in supporting the mental health and the well-being of our children, their friends, and all our neighbors. The isolation of this current setting and the anxiety about what January will look like is taking a toll on everyone, and we need to be extra careful with the words we use, particularly when talking to our neighbors, our teachers, and of course our children. Please encourage children to reach out to the teachers, the guidance departments, and the building leaders for support and help. And thank you all for caring. I want to again thank our SOMA and ASCA partners for working diligently and creatively on the reopening task force. Our nursing staff, as well as our local health departments, are all instrumental in that work as well. Thank you all for using your professional expertise to support best practices for the district reopening plan in January. The board would like to acknowledge the work of the QSAC team, as Dr. Taylor just mentioned, was led by Dr. Friedman. We look forward to that deeper dive once the county returns their response to our self-assessment. QSAC is just a snapshot of the district's operations, but does require a consistent attention to quality control in everything that every adult does every day in this district as we bring that to their work. And that's all I have. So Student Representative Lily Foreman.
Thank you. Sorry, some tech issues. Thank you. Okay. This month, I was glad to start working with Kai McCrae, a fellow senior at CHS, in his new role as alternate student representative to the board. Over the next few weeks, we're planning to look more closely at the way the role of alternate student rep has functioned in the past and investigate and appealing for a few. Jai and I both believe that the more students have a seat at the table, the better. So we're excited to look into what changes might be possible to bring more student voices into board discussions. In our conversations with administration this month, we discussed grading policies and the return to school plan. I'm excited that Mr. Sanchez is planning on introducing corrections to our current grading system to make our practices more consistent and equitable and to better support CHS students. Mr. has also let Jai and I know that he's recommended that CHS cancel midterms this year because of how they line up with our scheduled return to school in January. He's making this recommendation after speaking with faculty, fellow building administrators, and curriculum supervisors who all would prefer to use those days for direct instruction through the hybrid model. I'm hoping to work with Jai and other students in the next few weeks to put out the third student survey of this school year. We're planning to gather student feedback about students' experiences with the current school year, their questions, concerns, and suggestions regarding returning to school in January via the hybrid model, and how school can better support both academics and any students that will be emails and will be publicized on campus. And that concludes my report for tonight.
Thank you, Lily. So now we are at the time for our first public speaks. This is an opportunity for you to share your concerns about an item on the agenda, but is not a time for dialogue with the board. We will start with the live public speaks. The board requests that you state your name and the town of your residence for the record. We will set the time to 3 minutes for each speaker, and we ask that you respect that time limit. We must cut you off so that it does not appear as if we're giving anyone an advantage to share their views over another individual. Speakers have the full protection of free speech during public speaks. However, this forum does not protect you from the subject of your free speech pursuing libel or slander charges. Thank you. Mr. Bonds, I believe we had someone sign up.
That's correct. We have one person who signed up. Community member Alyssa Malaspina.
Hello, can we hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ms. Malsmina.
Hi, how are you? My question is related to the grading system or the grades that have come into specifically Columbia High School, but in general, the district. First marking period is ended. Many districts have released information about how grading has done, especially in this new virtual environment. Are we planning to release anything? Because the studies have shown that many children have, we have seen lower grading or more people failing. And we don't know what is going on in South Orange and Maplewood. I'm wondering if we are planning to release anything, and also if there is an issue, what are some of the supports that are going to be in place to help our children succeed moving forward? Be it re-looking at the grading system, putting in more supports for our kids, etc. That's it.
Great, thank you, Ms. Malaspina. Dr. Taylor, would you like to go to the submitted questions?
Thank you. Yes, I will. So I'm first looking in our chat here in the Q&A quickly. Colleen McCrink asked, can we spend the last remaining minutes of the meeting discussing topics of pressing interest to the school situation, please? I'm literally about to put my kids into private school and came here for answers to serious questions about am delaying bedtime to see them, but have watched nothing but administration pats on the back. I can't deal with this. Folks, this is a problem. The second question here on the Q&A, can you share the video elsewhere? It was beautiful. I'm now shifting over to the questions that came in via our online platform. And for those who don't normally attend these meetings, we do respond to the questions that come in at the end of putting all the questions on the record. So I'm shifting over now. All right. The first question here is from Kevin Hartzell. Has the district done anything to assess how effective its online learning is as compared to in-person instruction, especially for children with IEPs and our youngest students? How can any educated person be made? How can any educated decision be made about when to bring children back to school without knowing anything concerning the efficacy of online education. The second submitted via our platform, Public Speaks, comes from Daphne Sipos, Sipos. How will you ensure that kids have the same amount of live synchronous instruction they are receiving now, no matter whether kids have chosen virtual only option or back to school option? Why can't we be back in school like neighboring districts, in person in the morning and virtual in the afternoon? Will there be live streaming from the classroom to ensure all children are receiving live synchronous instruction? The next question is from Heather Hartzell. The district's communication to parents during lockdown has been inconsistent at best and subpar at worst, particularly since the failure to install the needed vents caused yet another delay in the planned opening of schools. Will you commit to weekly updates on the status of school openings going forward? If not, why not? Moving my screen up here. The next comment is from Kendra Kessler. What is preventing a full day of in-person school for hybrid cohorts A and B on their designated days, particularly concerning K2 and the special needs students? I've heard eating lunch is a concern and taking off masks. We can find a workable solution to eating safely to allow our children a fuller day of education. Happy to volunteer my time in finding a solution to get the kids a longer school day. The next public speaks is from Liza, Liza Smith. What is the best method of keeping live teachers interacting daily with all students? Will there be live broadcasting from the classroom to virtual students? The next comment is from Allison Schramm, Schramm. Hi, I would like to understand how the amount of live synchronous instruction will change for elementary students with a move from the current full virtual to the proposed hybrid. I would also like to understand why the district can't provide for at least 2 full days in the hybrid model. The next comment is from Allison Schramm. Hi, I would like to understand how the amount of live synchronous instruction will change for elementary students with the move from the current full virtual model to proposed hybrid. I would also like to understand why the district can't provide at least 2 full days of hybrid. The next comment is from Nadia Herrera. I am a parent of 2 preschool children in the district. Have you all considered separating students into 2 cohorts, all virtual classrooms and all in-person classrooms? It seems like an elegant solution so that teachers can focus one method of instruction. It would allow the district to accommodate at least some teachers that cannot teach in person because of medical conditions. It would ensure that virtual learners are provided with high-quality instruction. Lastly, such an arrangement may also permit the district to accommodate 5 days of in-person instruction for younger learners. The next public speaks is from Mary Claire Sonneman, Sonneman. Why have we not received communication around our return to school on January 19th, specifically about how buildings are being prepared for reopening? Thanks, Mary Claire. The next public speaks is from Elena Radine, or Radine, Radine. Has there been any consideration given to trying to get students who need it most, IEPs and pre-K5, into school 5 days a week? The next public speaks is from Katie Tikachek. Tichacek, Tichacek. I gave the school district every benefit of the doubt because no one was ready for COVID, but my trust was broken by Merv Gate. What exactly happened there, and why are we waiting around for a filtration system that is not required by the state or recommended by the CDC? Why is nothing happening at schools now? All the capital improvements and upgrades for COVID safety that need to be done are still not, and still nothing is happening. I don't think anything is happening because here my screen I'm up here, because our two boys attend the Y at Clinton 5 days a week, which they have done safely since September, and I don't see HVAC trucks or construction teams, but maybe something is happening and parents just have no idea because of poor communication. Talk to us. We don't want platitudes about unprecedented times. We want answers. Our teachers and our kids deserve them. From Philip Ryan. 9 months after an emergency measure was passed to close schools and keep kids, staff, teachers, and families safe, the district is still dithering, dithering, about when and if schools can safely reopen. Where is the accountability for the October debacle over missing ventilation equipment? Is installing this equipment still a precondition for opening? We are surrounded by towns that have managed to safely reopen schools without new elaborate ventilation systems. Families and teachers alike have been kept in the dark with infrequent and inadequate updates. The data shows schools can safely operate and are not a vector of the transmission of COVID. Will you consider revising your current plan to open elementary schools at 5 days a week based on the most up-to-date data that this is safe? The next public speaks is from Colleen McCormick. Has the district made use of the extensive database developed by superintendents and data scientists to help determine whether or not opening elementary schools at full capacity will be safe for students and teachers? In pulling the New Jersey elementary public school data, there's no effect on teacher infection rate of in-person full capacity elementary schooling with 3-foot distancing and ventilation versus capacity with these measures in place? What are the exact considerations that are stopping the district from implementing a 5-day-a-week model? I have heard that busing is an issue. Do we have an accurate gauge as to how many parents would need transportation for their children in the remaining school year? I've also heard that there are too many students opting in to 5 days to properly socially distance. Has the district looked at safety data from other districts in which a 3-foot and not a 6-foot model is implemented? Data from NJ on this can be drawn from the COVID dashboard linked above by using the drop-down variable. Plexiglass partitions are placed between rows of students to create a barrier that increases capacity but limits the direct flow of air. Is the district being guided by the assumption that there will be too many parents opting into 5 days and who need transportation? Or does the district already have that information in hand? What is the timeline for children to return back to school 5 days per week? I'm scrolling here. The next public speaks is from Anna Ferguson. Why does the special education department not have a plan for compensatory education for my regressing second grader? Because we've shared this parent's name, I don't want to discuss. I think it's not proper for me to discuss a student's academic performance, especially a student who has an IEP. But I will share this question and response with Dr. Alegria. The next public speaks is from Dorothy Robinson. What are the district's plans for making sure elementary age children haven't fallen too far behind with virtual learning? How will they support kids who have regressed going forward? The next public speaks is from Kristen Harley. What exactly are the steps administration is taking to account for the many students who need in-person and one-to-one assistance and who have gone without it since March? And please do not say there are some students who have been getting in-person. I'm referring to the many who are not, as well as the discrepancy between schools, i.e. certain pullouts at Marshall are happening where the same ones at Seth Boyden are not. The next public speaks is from Ben Kaplan. As a parent of two boys at Seth Boyden, I write to express my strongest desire and support for resuming in-person education as soon as possible. Most SOMA parents desperately want their kids back in school, but a more vocal minority of parents are resisting this very necessary development. I'm sure you know about the many studies showing poor long-term outcomes for virtual learners and minimal transmission rates among young children. In New York City, the largest and most complex school district in the nation, can go full-time. Surely we can too. It is so sad to me that our bars, gyms, restaurants remain open at this time, but not our schools. What are we doing? Instead of a hybrid option in January, how about a full-time option as well? Please do your best to get our kids back in school. The next public speaks is from Sarah Courtney. Why is the district not offering 5 days a week as an option for elementary students? The Science, CDC, American Academy of Pediatrics, and Dr. Fauci all recommend young children need to be in school, yet our district has not educated our children to these standards since March. Is the district revisiting their plan from months ago of just 2.5 days and considering 5 days for elementary? My follow-up question is, why is the district sending out emails about mental health, but punishing students with failing grades, allowing teachers to admonish students who are struggling? Finally, will the district be releasing data assessments on students' learning loss? If so, when? The next question, public speaks, is from Betsy Seal. How many children have withdrawn from the district this year? Will re-registration run smoothly? Will that be done online? The next public speaks is from Julie Fry, F-R-Y. For some reason, this public speaks is running off of the page that I have here, but I will read what I can see. We want Dr. Taylor and the members of the Board of Education, thank you for Keith for fixing that. Dear Dr. Taylor and members of the Board of Education, we want to thank you for your efforts you've made to prepare our district for a return to in-person instruction and for everything you have done to improve the quality of remote instruction. This has been a challenging year for our teachers and staff, for parents and for students. Although we believe the district and especially our teachers have made every possible effort to instruct and support our children remotely, we also believe that there are limits inherent in the remote methodology itself that are causing significant academic, emotional, and social harm to many children in the district. This is especially true for our youngest learners, and many of our special education and ESL students for whom remote school has proven developmentally inappropriate. Scrolling my screen up here. Fortunately, after collecting data from almost 200 countries around the world and thousands of school districts in the US, including here in New Jersey, global and national health authorities, there's a list of those here, UNICEF, the WHO, the AAP, Dr. Fauci, and Dr. Osterholm, have concluded that elementary schools can and should be opened safely, and that opening elementary schools poses no significant risk to the health of our teachers and students, nor are they a significant source of community spread of COVID-19. Given that the start of our in-person school has been delayed for more than half the school year, we believe that the best way to begin to make up some of the deficits of our youngest learners are our youngest learners are facing is to bring elementary students whose families choose to return the option to go to school 5 days a week. Over 100 school districts in our state are currently offering at least elementary students the option to go to school 5 days a week. Right here in our towns, Our Lady of Sorrows has been operating its K-8 school full-time since September, as are many parochial schools in the area. And as you know, the YMCA has been providing childcare safely in our school buildings since the beginning of the school year. This has all been done in accordance with state safety guidelines. We know that it can be done. We believe that in an effort to get kids back in school as much as possible safely, the district should first survey families and determine how many children will actually return in person in January. The district's current model assumes 100% of current students will return in person. This is almost certainly not correct. The opportunity for kids to be back in school as much as possible shouldn't be limited by space reserved for students who will not be there. Other districts have set deadlines by which parents must decide which option they prefer. Of course, every family has the right to remote instruction at any time, but the district can and should have its goal setting as many vulnerable students back in the classroom who want to be there for as many days as possible. The district should reassess our current plan after reviewing results of the survey and base our social distancing requirements on the actual number of students who will be in school. We are also concerned that the district board and families don't have a complete picture of the long-term harm caused to our district based on schools being closed for such an unprecedented amount of time. We have heard that remote learning is going well, but without objective data, families in the district don't have a full picture of what is happening. And I'm sorry, my screen is a little weird here between this. What are the details of the hybrid plan for elementary schools? Mr. Bonds, can we just pause the clock for 1 second? Because between the last line of number 20, and the first line of 21, my screen's is jumping back and forth here. I'm not sure if there's anything that we can do. I can't read the end of one and the beginning of the other.
Are you done with that comment, or you're still reading on that comment? Because I can.
I read the last line that I can see, but it says remediate the harm experienced by many students and then that's where it stops. I can go to the next one, the last one here, but I couldn't see the bottom part of that.
Okay.
So for the last public speaks from Ticania, T-I-C-I-A-N-A, Maloney or Maloney. What are the details of the hybrid plan for elementary schools? if we choose hybrid, what happens to the days kids are home? Asynchronous learning, what happens on Fridays? Synchronous with entire class, we need more details. So I'll stop there. And give some responses. Mr. Bonds, if you're able to grab the last sentence off number 20, just let me know and I'll read it into the record. Mr. Bonds, can you mute your mic, please? Thank you. And again, thank you to the parents and community members who took time out of their evening to put forth public speaks. And as is our normal protocol, I will respond in real time to information that I have available to me. The first question regarding the grading system and releasing info, we have begun to review that information, specifically with emphasis on Columbia High School. The Columbia High School team, along with the SLT, have done a deep dive into that information, and we're preparing to share it first with our curriculum and instruction board committee. And of course, using that information to drive decisions that we are considering. I think that you heard from our board rep, our board rep Foreman, that we are considering some actions around mid-marking period assessments and those type of things that could assist with some of the challenges that students have experienced. We also spoke about in the spring that we shifted to a course in progress designation to allow students more time to complete their courses. That could also be a consideration based on the outcome of the data. The second public speaks here that was in our chat spoke about pressing issues, and I think that that is speaking about the reopening of schools, as did a lot of the public speaks on the other platform. We'll be discussing that in great detail at our upcoming town hall that'll be released on December 17th. I don't want to shortchange the responses to each of those questions because there will be detailed review and response to those questions that were specifically asked both here and in the other platform. The next question regarding the release of the video of the gentleman who was Isaac, who was playing the piano. I believe we're already preparing to do that release from an email that I just saw. I'm shifting over to the other platform. So again, the majority of these questions were asking very specific questions around the concern of 5-day academic scheduling for elementary schools, a full day instead of an early dismissal day once we're in an in-person setting, and some of the science up around elementary settings and COVID-19. And just to be very clear, at our town hall meeting, we'll also have health experts as well as our HVAC and architect experts there to answer some really specific third-party perspective on all of these concerns. And please know there was a question here around if we've started. We've shared with the board very detailed reports and accounts from this project thus far. We're going literally room to room to check each of these units, and also there's a plan of action for each one, whether it's just cleaning or cleaning and changing out filters, or even if a repair is needed to make sure that that univent is working as it should and bringing air into the classroom for, of course, increased ventilation. I'm just scrolling down here. I think that, one encompassing response is that I hope that what we've demonstrated is that we are, that we want our students to come back to our buildings, that like many districts, both in our immediate area and across the state and across the country. There are definite concerns, that have been shared, concerns about doing this the safest way possible. But I believe that, we've demonstrated that we most definitely want to make this happen, understanding that though our state guidance does not say specifically what each district has to do for their ventilation systems, their HVACs, there is it's implied that you should do all that you can do, all that is reasonable to do. And that's what I think that how we would describe the work that we're doing. It's not mandatory, but I believe that we as stewards of these children and our employees, teachers and administrators, that we should do all that we can do. Scrolling down just a little bit more here. The question around why can't we do a 5-day elementary approach or why we can't do a full day approach. I want to save that response for our town hall because I want to be able to have a longer conversation around it. Some of the public speaks spoke about some of the reasoning, but there's a real finite amount of detail in these public speaks that I think a lot more nuance can be provided in our town hall and in our Q&A opportunity. The one thing that I would say that we're going to include, and yes, to one of these questions, we are going to be doing another survey that will help to guide the work that we're doing. We just want parents to have their town hall session prior to responding to that survey. That for us to shift, there was a question around shifting to having all virtual teachers versus teachers who are in person, having two separate cohorts of teachers. We have to remember that would mean that for many students, their teacher and class makeup would change. And we know how important a concern that can be for families, especially elementary families. We've all had mental health challenges during this time. And the last thing that we think is probably best is to shift the relationship that teachers have built with their teachers and for some have built with their students. And some of these ideas would take that type of shift. But we want to be fair and collect as much information as possible. And we'll be sharing those responses to many of these questions on the 17th and also the 21st. To our board president, that concludes my responses. Mr. Bonds has sent me the last public speaks here so I can capture the last sentence there.
Right.
We are also concerned that the district board and families don't have a complete picture of long-term harm caused to our district based on schools being closed for such an unprecedented amount of time. We have heard that remote learning is going well, but without objective data, families in this district don't have a full picture of what is happening and what needs to be done in the future to remediate the harm experienced by many students. In the interest of clarity and transparency, we are asking for the following information: enrollment data, year-over-year comparison broken down by grade, attendance rates with the same year-over-year comparison, academic assessment results broken down by grade, school, and demographics, the number of students enrolled and referred to academic intervention this year compared to last, number of social worker referrals this year compared to last, the number of students receiving failing grades in the first marking period compared to last year, are compensatory services being offered or planned for students who are not receiving IEP order services or related service. Our organization, SOMA for Safe Return to Schools, has generated over 1,500 signatures in just a little over a week in support of our goal. We want the board and district to know that remote learning has simply become untenable for many parents and children in our towns. We would like to work together to find a science-based solution to reunite our children with their beloved teachers safely and as soon as possible. Signed, Julie Fry, SOMA for Safe Return to Schools. And so again, I will reiterate that we are looking at and collecting data and understanding that there's going to be nuance in a lot of the information that we are collecting and sharing. At our next board meeting in January, we normally would be sharing our class size update, but we'll be including in those updates the ASSA, which is known as the October 15th enrollment data, as well as course enrollment data that's a part of our BPW settlement. Madam President, that concludes my update.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. And I think there will be some additional discussion during some of the committee reports as well related to some of the questions. So great. So now we're ready for the discussion portion of the meeting, our committee reports. Board Member Joshua, would you like to do FFT and personnel?
Sure. I will start with finance. So the finance committee met on December 3rd. 3 of the 4 committee members were in attendance. The vast majority of the discussion centered around preliminary budget process for the 21-22 school year and decisions that should be made around surplus and budget, broad strokes on the budget process for the upcoming school year. And with the note that the new board and new finance committee will be working with Mr. Roth and Dr. Taylor through that process. I just want to bring the board up to date on some of the resolutions that are on the agenda for this evening. 4084F is a donation from the Parenting Center for $5,275 to use to support the toy drive, holiday toy drive, and other initiatives. 4084I is a resolution for the purchase of Atlas, which is a curriculum management system, which will be used to tie in with our Canvas learning management system. That is $22,500 in recurring expenses and about $13,000 in one-time setup fees, which include professional development, installation, etc. Other resolutions I wanted to raise for this evening: 4084K is a resolution for continuing Dr. Fergus's work on the integration plan and related activities. 4084L is the modified Berkeley algorithm, which will be used to create micro neighborhoods as part of the integration rezoning plan. And lastly, 4084P, additional construction management expenses. It's about $60,000. It still keeps us within the allotment that's been provided in the contract. There was also a discussion on technology. To date, the district has provided 1,400 Chromebooks, and that's from July through the meeting, which was on December 3rd. And 172 hotspots have been distributed to families, 97 via the Achieve Foundation, and 74 via CARES. Well, that doesn't add. CARES Act, I think it's 75. Sorry, via the CARES Act and some other grants. And lastly, just an update on the facilities plan. We are still in code review for the 4 Maplewood projects at the elementary schools: Clinton, Jefferson, South Boyden, and Tuscan. In that order, we expect that if the last bit of back and forth is completed, that we can get Clinton and Jefferson bid. Hopefully, it's possible to get a bid to the holidays and maybe early January. Seth Boyden and Tuscan would follow suit. And then after that would be the projects out South Mountain, the Annex, and Marshall. Before I go on to personnel, I just want to see if any of the committee members had wanted to bring something else that I didn't discuss.
I have a question, Thair.
Yes, Board Member Wright.
Good evening, everyone. On the minutes, I forget which paragraph it was. Wait a minute, let me see. it was the next to the last paragraph, and I think the second paragraph where we talked about where surplus money goes. I don't think the board, let me look, I don't think the board has, it's not a board decision in terms of where that money goes.
No, so what happened? I'm sorry.
No, it's not a board decision. It's not the board's decision in terms of where that surplus money goes. It generally goes back to the taxpayers. It should.
Are you? I just want to make sure. I can't see you, so I wanted to make sure you're finished before I responded.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm sorry.
Okay. And then Mr. Roth, if I misspeak, please hop in. But my understanding is from the discussion was about, you know, recommendations that the district was making to the board. It's not our say, but it was a recommendation that was made, and they wanted the board to be the decision that was being made about, and not all of the money. We can, they're only, as you know, there's about only 2% is the cap that we can put in reserve accounts, and this was, you know, discussion along those lines. Mr. Roth, did I cover that accurately?
Yeah, I'd just like to elaborate a little. At the end of every school year, you could check back on the June resolutions, and that would be June 2020, June 2019, June 2018. The board does approve resolutions authorizing up to a certain amount of surplus to move into reserve accounts. The district has two reserve accounts, maintenance reserve and capital reserve. Most recently, the maintenance reserve account was set up. These reserve accounts are to keep essentially the district's promise to budget for future projects while that $160 million improvement plan is being paid off over the next 27 years. Keep in mind, flat roofs don't last 30 years, that there'll have to be some replacement. And also, while the long-range plan was approved, $90 million of health and safety renovations was in that plan, but there was about a total of $200 million of total repairs identified, and then it was prioritized. So there is obviously some work that the district continually has to do that's outside of the long-range plan, and that's the purpose of those reserve accounts, to avoid future bonding and to make sure we could maintain the facilities, that there would be a budget there. Now, all of these reserve accounts are capped by law. We are not at the caps. And if during a June board meeting, resolutions aren't passed approving money to move to the reserve accounts, then of course, everything would have to, any unspent dollars has to go back to the taxpayer as revenue in the following school year. So there is a substantial amount of surplus that will be going back to the taxpayer for next school year. Because as you know, being shut down, there were a number of contracts which were renegotiated. Those were approved by board resolution, for instance, transportation. There was a lot of overtime and other items that did not take place during the shutdown, and that generated a lot of surplus revenue, unspent money at the end of last year, which now by law will be moving into the budget for next year as revenue. But there is a recommendation where $3 million would go into the capital and maintenance reserve accounts to ensure those funds are there to avoid future bonding. And it's about $6.6 million that's returning to the taxpayer. So that is a very broad summary of it. And I hope you find that helpful.
Oh, and one more thing. Mr. Roth, you mentioned that, you know, flat roofs don't last that long. I'm here to be a witness, but I also know that you get warranties with a roof job, generally 30 years. And so we're saying that roofs don't generally last 30 years, but warranties do. So if we get the right warranty, we can last quite a bit of time, and it's nice to see some money going back to the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else before I move on to personnel? Okay, so the personnel committee, we met December, why am I missing the date here? December 9th, excuse me. December 9th, 3 or 4 committee members were present. We discussed a review of the personnel items on tonight's agenda, mostly routine in terms of resignations, retirements, new hires, leave replacements, etc. We reviewed the matrix with Ms. Robinson on open positions that we still have in the district and what the status is for filling some of those. Obviously, some are on tonight's agenda for approval, so that that matrix will the number of positions will be decreased. And then there was some discussion amongst the committee about ensuring that some of our central office staff have the proper support to do their jobs, as we understand that there's a lot of work to be done in the coming calendar year and beyond, and we just want to make sure that they have the proper support to ensure that those roles are done well. And then lastly, we thanked the admin, as again in December we mentioned earlier in this meeting about board transition. So we want to thank the committee as well as the board. The committee will be transitioning with the new board, and we noted the work that was done this year, in particular with a lot of the senior level hires that were made. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Board Member Joshua. I did, at our committee meeting, we had not appointed a replacement for the parenting center. And it looked
right. That interview happened after, right? We were told the interview was going to happen after the meeting, and if all went well, we would be presented with a resolution for tonight, which apparently all went well. So we've been presented with a resolution tonight.
And I believe it's an internal candidate as well, Ms. Robinson. Great. Anything else? Great. So why don't we go to curriculum and instruction, Board Member E. Baker?
Sure. Thank you, President Manny. So the Curriculum and Instruction Committee met last week for nearly 5 hours on the evening of the 7th. The minutes have been shared with the board, but I think there are several important highlights. Obviously, we have an incredible volume of curricula up tonight for approval. Most of these curricula were being revised to align with the CUSAC standards, and Dr. Friedman was able, in very short order, to bring work that had been ongoing for some time and which had been stressed, as a result of the pandemic and the move to remote learning, to bring these curricula across the finish line with the support of Ms. Bodner and the curriculum supervisors. So I think one thing that we've seen, and compared to 3 years ago, is that we now have a much more standard uniform template for curriculum, which is no small feat. But what this led to was an item that Board Member Joshua has already referred to in his report for FFT, for finance, which is the recommendation that the district purchase a curriculum repository. So that not only would all curricula be viewable and accessible by parents, students, staff alike through the website, but it would actually be a management tool for monitoring the alignment of curricula to standards, to generate pacing guides from very complex, lengthy curriculum documents, and to provide a management tool for tracking review and revision, like workflows of curricula, as well as to interface with Canvas. So that is one of the recommendations from the administration tonight. However, the point was not lost. The community's point regarding the need for data was a point that the committee has raised, and there are several reports which the committee has requested be shared with the board before the end of this month, so that this board has it. And these are data points that I would strongly recommend to the incoming board that you begin with at your reorganization meeting and not wait to the January meeting, because I think it should frame the work for the balance of the school year and going into the next school year. And so those reports include a report regarding how our students have fared in remote learning in the first quarter, with an emphasis on Columbia High School, but not exclusively with respect to Columbia High School. We've requested a report regarding the Star Renaissance assessments, as well as the teachers' college assessments, as well as data points, which are available certainly at the secondary level, middle school and high school, regarding the quarterly assessments and unit assessments, particularly within our STEM and other aligned, more recently aligned curricula, as metrics both for learning loss, measure of learning loss from last year, and a discussion about intervention and compensatory strategies, both with respect to individual students and more programmatically by school, class, grade. We also, Board Member Mizaki speaks to this perhaps with greater insight than I do, requested that there be a report as to how the Canvas is being used both to generate data as well as to improve teaching and learning in the remote and hopefully hybrid setting in January. And that, this was a big leap. We know that there was certainly a fair amount of training and a paradigm shift to launch Canvas, but, we need to move beyond the initial implementation phase to actually improving it and leveraging its utility as a tool for teaching and learning. So those are very important data points. The other, I think, substantive discussion that the incoming board needs to take up very quickly is the analysis that the administration is preparing that we requested in District Goal 3 for an analysis as to the district's implementation or gaps in implementation of each and every one of the commitments in the OCR resolution agreement, the comprehensive equity plan, and the recent settlement with the Black Parents Workshop. We're asking that these commitments be analyzed not by legal document, but by grouping or category of work and looked at holistically, and that the board be presented with a very clear assessment as to which measures were, for example, one-time measures that have been completed, which measures are supposed to be ongoing measures that are either in place, or if they're not in place, when they will be in place, so that we can then begin to move from making sure the infrastructure is there to actually taking it to the next level and looking at how we're not only continuing each one of those steps, but improving upon the work and achieving better results for our students. So it's my understanding, and I've updated the committee today, that Dr. Perez, with the help of the Curriculum Instruction Department and the building leaders and other members of the administration, is making progress in that analysis, and that it should be ready for a presentation in January. I regret that I won't be here to be with you on this side of the horseshoe or the panel to see it, but I will work as part of the committee transition to get that work as far along as possible, because I do think it's a critical roadmap for the board to make sure that the foundations are there and that we're making good on our commitments. So in addition to that, we had the good fortune of having Mr. Sanchez, the principal from Columbia High School, join the committee and give us both his views as to some improvements in class ranking, grading, midterm processes, not only this year, but longer term, particularly with respect to class rank and grading at Columbia High School. I know he's working with a student representative Foreman and her colleague, the alternate student rep, to obtain student input. And the committee outlined several substantive questions that we thought would be helpful to round out further with the recommendation so that the board could make a substantive decision as to what it wants to do with respect to class rank by early January, and then have a policy drafted for first reading no later than February and adoption in March. And the goal is that the community should be aware of where we're headed, particularly this year's current juniors who will be applying to college next year. And the goal is to make sure that our class rank policy not only is fair and equitable to students, but that we around class rank, we create, and that policy, we not only help our students launch as successfully as possible into a very competitive post-high school world, but that the class rank policy is part of a broader body of work within Columbia High School to create a culture that encourages, supports, and recognizes academic achievement throughout a student's experience at Columbia High School, from the minute they walk in as a fresh person through their graduation as a senior. And so I think that is very important policy work, which will impact the high school in a positive way over the longer term. We also had, as always, a very detailed report from Dr. Alegria regarding improvements in the special education process. I think in response to one of the questions that was raised in the public speaks, Dr. Alegria is working on the plan, and I believe this will be shared with the board, with the committee next month regarding compensatory services. She was also reported that she had met with the hub in Maple and Middle about improvements, which are social emotional support improvements in their program offerings for the students in Maple and Middle, and that work will be carried forward to similar conversations and improvements at the Loft supporting Columbia High School students. And there was so much more, but given that's the best summary I can provide of nearly 5 hours of discussion. Committee members, do you want to jump in if there's anything I left out?
Well, I'll jump in. Yeah, it was a very long and detailed meeting. Board Member Baker, I think, covered a lot of it as well. I just wanted to probably say a little bit of the same thing in a different way. And it started in the public speaks, actually, from what I heard from a lot of parents who, regardless of, which side you're on here of, should we be back in school in person or should we not, or whatever. We just finished one of the most unique marking quarters in the history of our school system. And I am disappointed that we are going to be waiting until January, which is in the middle of the second marking quarter, to really see how students did, as opposed to this time last year. And we spoke about that a lot in committee. And not only that, but to Board Member Joshua's report on FFT and also personnel, these are all very deeply intertwined as board members, right? Because when we talk about what resources we're going to put in place or approve to be put in place to address these issues, then are not only short term, because as I said, I think, an hour ago in thanking you all, the amplification of some of these issues that the pandemic has brought out, they're going to stay with us for a very long time. After this is done, right? So where are the targeted PE opportunities? What happened this past semester, and where are we going to go? And personally, it's just my opinion. I wish we did that a little more, like our hair was on fire. And disappointed that we're not. I would urge everybody to do that quickly. It's very clear that our neighbors are feeling it. As a parent, of course, I'm feeling it too. And clearly, as far as the curriculum repository, which I don't think anybody disagrees that we need, to not have gotten an update on the measures that this board approved to be able to move this district forward with Canvas and other things, to not really have been given a good report out of how that was going to be used in order for me to inform my vote that we were going to use the next product just as well. It didn't sit well with me. It didn't. And, you know, that's not to diminish the good work that's been done. That's just to give you an idea of the lens that I've been looking at this through. So I really look forward to hearing that data. It is true that nationwide, it's been an epidemic of failures, Fs that have been giving out. You know, we saw some articles about that today. We'll find out where our district fared in that, but you know, therein lies a real big problem that I think we really need to unravel as soon as humanly possible, you know, together.
Great. Thank you, Board Member Mazzocchi. And I think Dr. Friedman mentioned, you know, moving this organization to be a data-driven organization is not something we can just turn a switch on, right? And these are frustrations that many board members have felt for many years, and you know, we're running out of time for our students. So hopefully we can see some really informed decision making and improvements for what's happening to our children in the classroom. Board Member Siders, would you like to do the policy update?
Yes, hello. Before I begin the update, I'd just like to give a quick year-end summary of what we accomplished in the policy committee. We passed or approved 67 policies. Of those 67 policies, 23 were bylaws, which is, for those who are not familiar, the bylaws are the policies that govern the board and how we run meetings, how we vote. We also passed 10 or approved 10 policies for students, 10 policies for finance, 8 policies for programs, and just one quick 6 policies for administration. So if anyone would like to see those lists of those policies, I have that. Regarding our policy meeting, we had our meeting on Wednesday, December 9th. All committee members were present. We did have a special guest, which was Principal Sanchez. And similar to the discussion that Principal Sanchez had with the CNI committee, we also discussed policy 5430, which is class rank. We had a vigorous discussion about it, about the presumed background of that policy, how the policy is currently written, and suggestions on how to improve the policy. At the conclusion of our meeting, we did decide to send the policy back to the CNI committee for revisions and to formally present a revised policy to the policy committee for future first read candidates. Up for tonight are 7 policies. These are for adoption tonight. We have, just going to mention 3 policies where we did make some changes. One was 0165, which is the voting policy. Based on feedback from a board member, we added some, well, I'm sorry, we didn't add any language, but there was an item that references the New Jersey Code regarding students who are entering our schools for the first time and how we have to vote. If they're entering our schools for the first time after October 1st, we have to vote on them being accepted into the school. Board member did have feedback, and we're going to be providing additional context around that particular New Jersey code, but we're going forward with the policy as is. Policy 0174, legal services. We made a few revisions around, we removed that there was reference to an in-house counsel, replacing it with a district employed counsel since we no longer have in counsel. We also added the business administrator / board secretary as the person who is responsible for reviewing all legal bills. And then one other is policy 175, contracts with independent consultants. Once again, based on board member feedback for the sentence where we talk about seeking proposals. We added language to say we will look for proposals from at least 3 sources before a contract with the independent consultant is entered. And then the final items, we have 2 policies up for first read. They are administration policies. One is 1613, disclosure and review of applicants' employment history, and 1642, earned sick leave. Are there any questions?
I have a couple with policy 0174, the legal. You guys know I've been talking about our legal expenses for a very long time. But so based on this, the district is implying its legal fees exceed 130%, correct? So what, the request, okay, so the request that the record reflect that the district legal costs have exceeded the 130% threshold, and is being revised non-order to get costs under control. Is that correct?
Where in the policy are you referring to that part?
I'm
the
trying
reason
to,
why. Yes.
As you can see, I'm reading the policy on my phone, so it's a little difficult for me to see. So I took some notes while you were talking. And the other thing, it was just one more thing, and I think we're right with it. But I'm just thinking that, you know, that the final legal analysis requested by the board, it should. Well, it directly or indirectly impacts the board, and it should be shared, you know, with all members. But anyway, at any rate, we're doing this policy to get our costs under control for legal. And this is the second reading, so I want to be clear because we're about to vote this into law, right?
Right.
Okay.
The reason why this policy has come up is because it was overdue. It's one of our bylaws, and the last time it was reviewed was in 2010. So that's why it made the list for revision.
Oh, it's very important. Thank you. Yes. Yes, it is. Okay.
Yes.
And the state has told us that we have to get our legal work in order. Our legal costs, we have to reel them back in. That was from the state last year or something. Paul, do you remember exactly when that was?
Board member Joshua?
Yeah, it was earlier in this year. I think it was February, Miss Wright, board member Wright. It was soon after I joined the board. We had that discussion. Back in the days when we used to meet in Mr. Roth's office, we would have that discussion.
My favorite meeting occur in Mr. Roth's office.
I just wanted to add on to this because I think it sort of ties into what both of you are saying, board members, deciders, and Wright. I believe it's paragraph 2 where we're saying all requests for legal advice should be made by a designated contact person. I think that is what would be going towards reducing costs instead of having, you know, all 9 board members reach, you know, something they deem important, having it all funneled through a designated person, which I believe is the board president in this case, will reduce costs because, you know, if 3 members ask the same question, it only needs to get asked once instead of having it coming from 3 different people. So things like that are, you know, quote unquote quick wins that can bring down legal expenses in the future.
Thank you. Were there any other questions? Okay, thank you.
I just would like to make one comment, just to follow up on the legal services point.
Yeah.
Since I will not be on the board as you approach the next budget season, I think it is very important to understand and have an analysis as to the legal costs and the types of cases that were driving the legal costs. Our special education litigation costs for many years were very high. It's my understanding that I don't think we've seen the numbers that we've bent that curve, because we've instead been investing in improving our special education services, our intervention services, and our compliance with the child find obligations. So I think going forward, it's not just the designated contact, which what existed in prior board policy, though at times we've had challenges maintaining organizational discipline in accordance with the policy, but it's also looking at what's driving the legal costs. Sometimes will be legal costs that we have to incur that are beyond our control, such as legal costs that for analysis of our proposed integration plan, for example, right? Like for us proactively to move ahead, we need to understand constitutional law, federal law regarding integration. But there are other types of legal costs where we're spending on the back end because we actually didn't have the right programmatic responses or resources on the front end. Or I think the danger that we've always looked at is where the legal outlet is actually kind of stopgapping for gaps within the administration. And I know like we've recently closed the HIB district-wide coordinator gap, and that's now squarely within the administration, which I think is good, complemented by legal advice, but not outsourced or performed by legal counsel. So it's not with any disrespect to any particular attorney. I have a love-hate relationship with attorneys, as many of you know, as one. But I think it's not just the policy, but also deep analysis, and we should be commissioning budget, looking for areas of inquiry with respect to our finances to inform the upcoming budget process. And I think that analysis is types of cases and the expenditures on legal representation, as well as judgments in different buckets, would be a worthwhile endeavor to complement the work on the policy.
Board Member Joshua, you were going to make a comment or no? Okay. All right. Any other comments? Okay. So now we are ready for the action portion of the meeting. Dr. Taylor?
Thank you. I present to the board for consideration Resolution 4081 through Resolution 4091.
Great. And we have Dr. Taylor's made the motion. Can I have a second?
I'd like to sever.
Second, I've seconded the motion, by the way.
Okay, all right. I'd like to sever 4084-L. That's the Rubicon Atlas program.
4084-L as in Lisa.
It was L-I small on my phone, so I think I was close. I think I need new glasses too with this pandemic. Anyway, I'd like to sever the Rubicon Atlas program, whatever the number is.
Dr. Taylor, would you like?
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Taylor, would you like to modify your motion?
Yes, I am 100% okay with that. Board members, we're moving forward 4081 through 4091, honoring the request to sever 4084I.
Can we have a second for that motion, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any discussion on the items up for in that motion? All except 4084I. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, we will close discussion. Mr. Roth, can you call the roll for those items, please?
Board Member Elizabeth Baker.
Yes, noting my recusals.
Okay, they're noted. Board Member Shannon Cuttle.
Yes, but I wanted to pause because I was unsure about the HIB report.
So Ms. Butler, how do we go back to discussion? Can we go back to discussion?
You've technically gone past it. If the board members are willing to go back to allow discussion, since you closed it, they would have to indicate their willingness to do that.
So board member Cuttle, what was the general question?
The general question was, I don't feel confident that it could be certified for this month, but that's my personal opinion.
Frankly, that's something I would have liked to hear in executive session when we could have talked about it more candidly.
Okay.
We didn't have the opportunity, and I would have brought it up.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that the board members are clear that what is being approved tonight is the November report, not the December report.
And we talked about the November report in the November meeting, right?
Correct.
So board member Cuttle, you can vote yes, abstain, or vote no.
Point of order would probably need to be severed, correct?
No, for the whole package, because we're not going back.
I see.
So the way it works is Dr. Taylor moves, he moves the items, we bring it into discussion, then we close discussion, and then we vote. And yeah, and then because this concern is about a confidential, there isn't much we can talk about in the public session. That's why I don't think it would be fruitful for us to try to move it back into discussion. So that's why, yep, go ahead, board member Cuttle.
I agree. I just wanted to bring it up as a not sure where we're at in the process. So thank you.
Right. So we do need a vote from you, board member Cuttle, either a yes, a no, or an abstain.
Can I retract?
You haven't voted yet.
Yeah, I'm sorry, board member Cuttle. I don't know what retract would mean.
No, I was trying to bring it forward for discussion if it was available for discussion, but doesn't sound like that's prudent. So
You're retracting that request. Okay, understood. I'm sorry, I got confused. So we're back to your turn in the roll call to vote for 40, everything but 4084I.
agree.
So Mr. Roth, I think you can record that as a yes. I can't see you. Mr. Roth, are you still on the?
I'm looking around. I don't see
I don't
Mr.
see
Roth in
him.
our boxes. But what we'll do, Joanne Butler and
got
I
it.
we'll pick up.
Okay, thank you. So Ms. Butler, Mr. Bonds went in a weird order. So I think Board Member Wright has to vote.
Well, Board Member Baker, E. Baker voted, and
Then Ms.
Board
Member
Member Cuddle voted.
Okay,
So
all right.
it appears to be going in alphabetical order. and then
Regular
we prob-
alphabetical order.
Right.
Never mind.
So
ahead.
that would be next. Board Member Joshua,
Yes.
Board Member Manny,
Yes.
Board Member Mazaki,
Yes.
Board Member Siders,
Yes.
Board Member Wright.
Yes, sugar.
Thank you. Let me just make,
Okay.
And Board
And
Member Zubieta.
oh, I'm
Zubieta.
sorry, Board Member Zubieta, I apologize.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 8 yeses.
Great, thank you.
To our board president, now that the board has approved those resolutions, I just want to ask the board to join me in just taking a moment of silence. As was reflected in one of our first resolutions, Ms. Hope Taylor, who served our district for more than 30 years as the dean of the 9th grade at Columbia High School, and also the former middle school middle school social studies teacher, passed away recently. So just want to give our condolences to the friends and family of Hope Taylor and ask for a just brief moment of silence. Thank you. And so now moving forward for consideration for the board and discussion 4084I.
Great. Can, Dr. Taylor's made a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great.
Aye.
All right. Is there any discussion on 4084I, which is the purchase of the Atlas curriculum repository?
I'm sort of with the kinds of things that we've been talking about and what needs to be done for our students, especially the things that are coming out of C&I. I'm more concerned with professional development for teachers, with learning how to teach students and learning how to teach students of color and putting money into that. And we're going back into, we had the performance matters. We just signed on to Canvas. Teachers are learning and still being engaged along with parents in that product, which should do the things that we need to be done. We're still investigating. And before we finish that, we're going to spend more money on another product that's all it's going to do is house curriculum. It's not going to help students. It's not going to help the teachers with instruction. And I'm still concerned about that. We're turning into that Mikey district. You know, hey, Mikey, try Mikey. He'll do it. And everything that comes up, we just jump on board with it. And I think it's too soon. Maybe later on. But right now, we have to focus on student achievement, student health issues, and things of that nature. And I can see that $32,000, $32,000 going on something that will benefit students personally. And that's just the way I feel right now.
Board Member Joshua?
I think we should just clarify the amount. It's a 22,000, which is the recurring expense. 13,000 is for setup fees and one-time things that go along with bringing the Atlas infrastructure into our system. As I noted earlier, it is a curriculum management system, and presentation and document from the administration on the things that Canvas can do to Atlas, the things that Canvas cannot do that Atlas can, right? And particularly with, you say, my understanding is that it's quote unquote just a house curriculum and there are other ways to do it. But my understanding from this I'm still talking, Ms. Wright, thank you. My understanding from this presentation is that the implementation of Atlas will not just allow teachers and students, but it allows parents access to curriculum in a very easily and digestible format, something that unfortunately we don't have right now, right? A lot of parents are helping out during our virtual learning circumstances, and without having access to the curriculum on a regular basis, it becomes a little bit more difficult for us, particularly, I'm talking as a parent of a kindergarten and third grader, to follow along with what is being done. Now, my understanding from this, and I haven't seen the demonstration of it, but from the information I was provided, in CNI, when I sat there, it's that it does both in a way that, and it can be integrated into Canvas. I understand, and I take the point that we have not seen a data report on all the things that Canvas can do. But, from what we've been told from from administration, from technology and a curriculum perspective, that this system will be beneficial to all of us in the future. So when you're saying it's a $36,000, that's true, but it's truly a $22,000 one, on a recurring basis. I look at, what we passed last month as a board, we passed a $20,000 with some one-time expenses as well for online policies. And that's something that that's really for us, not so much for parents. It's to an extent, but if we're going to do that for a policy online platform, I don't understand why we wouldn't do something similar for something as important as curriculum. That's my comment.
Elizabeth, Board Member Baker.
Because I have 35 years as an educator, and I heard Mr. Mazzocchi speak, who had more years, a number of years also as an educator and in this district. And I've seen things come and I've seen them go. I'm saying this may be great, but right now it's not the time. Our teachers are already overwhelmed with Canvas and the other kinds of things that they need to use. Parents are saying we need to be focusing on the things that are real in real time right now. Teachers need to learn how to teach in this environment, but we're going to take off and we're going to spend some money rather than taking that department and helping our staff develop. We're taking that money and saying we're going to house curriculum. And I'm just saying, how much money have we spent on the kids? Because we always spend the money on different things to come in. Everybody has something that they want, here a couple months and we're spending all of this money. And whoever's out of breath and stuff, I'm talking about the students here. So have a little respect.
Board Member Baker has the floor.
So to be direct, I think we can afford not to purchase, right? Because essentially the Pony Express version of curriculum management oversight and relying on a Google Doc for a pre-K to 12 school district, for teachers to access or parents and students to access is just irresponsible. We want to support our teachers in delivering high quality instruction in the classroom. We need to make the curriculum digestible. A Google Doc is not easily digestible. We've learned that from our students from the spring semester. We actually needed a tool like Canvas so that we could they could follow what they needed to do in a more efficient way and data could be generated. I do not disagree in the slightest about the need for the Canvas data or the other data points. And for all of you who are on the board, I urge you again to request that those data points be presented publicly in January. But what we have seen in terms of the amount of work that has to be done to get these curricula across the finish line when we didn't have a system for managing it, where various administrators who had to touch on the curriculum did not have a single template, did not have a single, an organized way of tracking the work. We're spending tens of thousands of dollars in staff time that should be spent on improving teaching and learning in the classroom on the wrong things, on the actual mechanical production of curriculum, or trying to create processes that, like Excel spreadsheets, where we're monitoring this whole process, where that a management tool will be able to do more effectively and provide us the data that we need. So this is in fact an investment in making sure that the educational expertise that we need to bring into our classroom is spent on the students and bringing it into the classroom, and not doing the work that technology can do to actually organize and create the oversight that the board needs and the administration needs with respect to curriculum. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you.
know,
Anyone else?
why can't we post the curriculum on our website and require passwords for different layers of what we share of the curriculum? That doesn't cost anything. I'm just saying.
And it costs tens and tens of thousands of dollars of staff time. I do not know what we can't get across here. If we have to have a PDF of every single curriculum, pulling out the pieces that are related to assessment that can't be public, and have to do that in PDF form for every school year, and to create pacing guides from the curriculum manually, rather than use a tool that can generate the pacing guide from the curriculum. So we're spending money in the wrong direction. It's like saying we're going to deliver everything by the Pony Express instead of email. It's just not efficient, and in fact, it takes away from the resources in our classroom.
Well, this should have been done by administrators all along. Honestly, it was always done by administrators. It was done as long as I was a teacher in this district. And so we're behind now. And so we can catch back up. It shouldn't cost us an arm and a leg to do that. Most people who are aware of who are teaching are very aware of the curriculum and what it needs. You have department chairmen, and we have them for a reason. And that's to take care of the curriculum and those things. And so maybe we need to begin to hold people accountable, rather than continually spending money putting on Band-Aids on things. As you know, and the curriculum is a process within itself. We're not at the top echelon of curriculum to be spending a whole lot of money for an expensive thing for curriculum that we're trying to get involved in right now.
President Mann.
Board Member Mazzocchi?
Just real quickly, I think I made my point, and I just wanted to say that, it is possible to listen to all of our colleagues here and agree with all of them at the same time, which I actually do. And I don't ever like to be in a position to be a board member who votes no on a resource that administration believes is in the best interest of the district. That's a very difficult place to be in. My point was that it would be a much easier place to be in if administration showed that there was a takeaway from the other resources that we have, approved, and come back to us and said, this is what's going to one-up it. So we do need a curriculum repository. I completely agree with Board Member Baker that the money is what the money is one way or another, although I think it's a slippery slope, Board Member Joshua, to compare dollars to dollars, because yes, $20,000 here and there doesn't seem like much, but it's 1/5 of the music budget, which just gave that young man the passion that he had that he shared with us today. So, it's a slippery slope to be doing that. Again, I'm disappointed that I'm in the position to have to vote, yes or no on this. And I really, truly hope that the next board and community can get real regular updates on the efficacy of all of the things that we approve for the betterment of our teaching and learning.
Great. Thank you. All right, I will close discussion. And Ms. Butler, can you call the roll, please?
Board Member Zubieta?
Yes.
Board Member Wright?
No.
Board Member Siders?
Yes.
Board Member Mazzocchi,
No.
Board Member Manny,
Yes.
Board Member Joshua,
Yes.
Board Member Cuddle,
Yes.
Board Member E. Baker.
Yes.
Motion passes
Great. Thank
6-2.
Thank you. So now we are at second public speaks. Mr. Bond, did anyone sign up for either?
I'm going to check right now. We definitely have an additional written comment. I'll check the other document.
Great, thank you.
Just the one written comment.
Just waiting for it to arrive. I also checked our chat here. I don't see anything that's for public speaks in there as well.
It's on the that same spreadsheet, Dr. Taylor. It's the last record.
Ah, okay, got it. Scrolling down to the last comment here. This is from Abigail Murtaugh. Dear Dr. Taylor and members of the Board of Education, we want to thank you for your efforts you've made to prepare our district for a return to in-person instruction and for everything you have done to improve the quality of remote instruction. This has been a challenging year for our teachers and staff and parents and for students. Although we believe the district and especially our teachers have made every possible effort to instruct and support our children remotely. I'm sorry, there I was reading a previous public speak, so I do apologize. Again, from Abigail Murtaugh, the screen jumped on me a little bit. Starting over here. I want to write in response to many of the public comments demanding a return to school no matter what. There are many in our community, including myself, who are opposed to the recklessness of these demands, to the risk they present for our teachers, to the false comparisons to neighboring districts, many of which are closed, Montclair, West Orange, Newark, to name a few, many of which have opened but have endured multiple extended closures due to positive COVID cases. Many of us balk at asking for 5 days of school for anyone who wants it, knowing this would make distancing very difficult. We balk at asking for school opening before proper ventilation has been installed. We balk at the insistence that safety measures should not be taken because they are not required by law. The implication that we should sacrifice on safety just to get bodies into the building, that we should do just enough and not as much as we can. The insistence that open windows and fans is a sound health and safety plan. I so appreciate the district's unwavering commitment to actually making schools safe for teachers, staff, and students, for allowing teachers to walk through and inspect the buildings before opening, for your insistence on not opening until the ventilation work has been completed. I appreciate the respect and care this communicates. I do think there is a safe way to open schools. I'm not sure if this is really possible with current numbers, but with proper, robust measures, I believe it could be safe for students to return eventually. In the meantime, I accept that this is a pandemic, that some academics will fall behind, that there are always improvements to be made, and that if we work as collaborators and not adversaries, we can do much more and go much further. Thank you. That concludes public speaks.
Great, thank you. So now we're on to new business. Board Member Cuddle.
Thank you, President Manny. I just wanted to not be remiss without expressing our condolences to our colleagues in Newark who lost their current board member, Octavio Tave Padilla, who was a long-term Newark Board of Education member and a member of also supporting the Essex County School Board Association. If I may, just let us have a moment of silence in recognition of our colleagues in Newark and their loss. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Cuddle.
I would like to add a little something about Miss Taylor, who passed away. I think many people know that we were very close. Her mother, my godmother, and she was my daughter's godmother. But even more important than that, at Maplewood Middle, she was the teacher who started the Peace March that they do. Be coming up, I guess, pretty soon in January. Hope and that program there, and there have been many students who have talked about what's going on. I know that everybody wants to know about the arrangements, and they will be coming soon. It's been difficult for everyone, but I would just want to thank Dr. Taylor and everyone for your expressions of condolence, and it's certainly appreciated. Thank you again. Thanks.
Just a little bit too much loss. Anyone else? Any other new business? Okay. All right, so I will move the following. The Board of Education will hold its annual reorganization meeting on Wednesday, January 6th at 6:30 via the online video conference platform. Action may be taken at this meeting. No, at the reorg meeting, action will be taken. Sorry. The board will adjourn to private session via an online video conference platform to discuss personnel and legal issues, negotiations, and other matters that might be announced at a later date. It's unclear, Ms. Butler, whether we will be coming back into public session or whether we would just not adjourn into exec until the public is done.
I believe the plan had been to allow for returning to public session if it was necessary.
Okay.
If anything had come up, you would have this in your notice already.
Great. Okay, so immediately following the closed session, the Board of Education may meet in public session at 7:30 using the online video conference platform. The community can view the meeting by following the steps on the agenda that will be published. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. All in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you. And now I move that we adjourn this meeting at 10:03. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Board Member Cuddle, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Happy holidays, everybody. Stay safe.
Happy holidays. Stay safe.
Happy holidays. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Be well.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone. Have wonderful holidays.